In the heart of a bustling city, where dreams often collided with harsh realities, Emily found herself standing at a crossroads. The weight of her past pressed heavily on her shoulders, a constant reminder of the choices that had led her to this moment. As she gazed out of her apartment window, watching the world rush by, she felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. Just weeks ago, she had been trapped in a suffocating cycle of expectations and disappointments, her spirit dimmed by the shadows of her family's judgment. But now, with her daughter Lily by her side, Emily was ready to reclaim her life. The call from her mother had been the catalyst, a jarring wake-up call that forced her to confront the toxic ties that had bound her for far too long. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden glow over the city, Emily took a deep breath, feeling the cool evening air fill her lungs. This was her moment, a chance to break free from the chains of her past and forge a new path, one filled with love, laughter, and the promise of a brighter future. Little did she know, the journey ahead would test her resilience, challenge her beliefs, and ultimately lead her to discover the true meaning of family. With determination in her heart, Emily turned away from the window, ready to embrace the unknown and create a life that was truly her own. The adventure was just beginning. Emily sat at her small kitchen table, staring out the window at the rain-soaked streets of Portland. At 32, she never imagined she would be starting over as a single mother. Just 6 months ago, her life had been a whirlwind of color and creativity, filled with the laughter of her 5-year-old daughter, Lily, and the promise of a bright future. But everything changed when Jake, her husband, walked out the door, leaving her with nothing but heartache and a mountain of bills. As a freelance interior designer, Emily had always prided herself on her independence and creativity. She loved transforming spaces, making them feel warm and inviting. But now, with Jake gone, she found herself struggling to keep her business afloat while also caring for Lily. The late nights spent working on projects were now filled with the sounds of her daughter's laughter, but they were also punctuated by the silence of an empty home. Moving back in with her parents seemed like the only logical choice. They lived just a short drive away, and Emily hoped they would provide the support she desperately needed. However, her relationship with her parents had always been complicated. They had high expectations, especially for Emily, who had always been the responsible one. In contrast, her younger sister Rachel had always been the free spirit, flitting from one job to another, yet somehow managing to win their parents' favor. Emily sighed, recalling the last time she had asked her parents for help. It was a simple request. Could they watch Lily for a few hours while she met a client? Her father had rolled his eyes, muttering something about being too old for babysitting. Her mother had crossed her arms, stating firmly that they didn't plan on being full-time caregivers at their age. The disappointment had stung, especially when she saw how eagerly they welcomed Rachel's children whenever she needed a favor. As she prepared breakfast for Lily, Emily couldn't shake the feeling of inadequacy. She was trying her best to juggle work and motherhood, but it often felt like she was fighting an uphill battle. The weight of her situation pressed down on her, and she wondered if she would ever find a way to balance it all. "Mommy, can we make pancakes today?" Lily's sweet voice broke through Emily's thoughts, pulling her back to the present. "Of course, sweetheart," Emily replied, forcing a smile. "Let's make the biggest pancakes ever." As they cooked together, Emily felt a flicker of joy. Moments like these reminded her of why she fought so hard to keep her family together. But deep down, she knew that the challenges ahead would test her strength in ways she couldn't yet imagine. With the smell of pancakes filling the air, Emily took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next. Little did she know, her life was about to take another unexpected turn. As the days turned into weeks, Emily found herself navigating the complexities of her new life. The mornings were filled with laughter and pancakes, but the evenings often left her feeling drained and alone. She had hoped that moving back in with her parents would provide a safety net, but instead it felt more like a trap. One evening, after a long day of meetings and design consultations, Emily decided to ask her parents for help once again. She had a big project coming up, and she needed someone to watch Lily for a few hours while she met with a potential client. Taking a deep breath, she approached her parents in the living room, where they were watching a game show. "Hey, Mom, Dad," she began, trying to keep her tone light. "I have a meeting tomorrow, and I was wondering if you could watch Lily for a few hours?" Her father looked up from the television, his brow furrowing. "Emily, we're retired. We didn't plan on being full-time babysitters," he replied, his voice laced with irritation. Emily felt her heart sink. "I know, but it's just for a few hours." "I'll pay you for your time, whatever a professional sitter would charge." Her mother crossed her arms, a familiar defensive posture. "You know how busy we are with our own lives. We have plans, Emily. We can't just drop everything for you." The disappointment washed over her like a cold wave. "But Rachel can drop off her kids anytime she wants, and you act like it's a party," Emily shot back, frustration bubbling to the surface. "Why is it so different for me?" Her mother's expression hardened. "That's not fair. Rachel's kids are well behaved, and she's going through a tough time too. You need to learn to manage your responsibilities better." Emily clenched her fists, feeling the familiar sting of inadequacy. "I'm doing my best here. I'm trying to build my business and raise Lily on my own. I just need a little support." Her father sighed, leaning back in his chair. "You're too picky, Emily. You always have been. Maybe if you weren't so focused on your career, you'd find a way to balance everything." The irony of his words hit her hard. Rachel had never held a steady job, yet their parents treated her like a golden child. Emily felt the weight of their expectations pressing down on her, suffocating her spirit. As she retreated to her room, she couldn't shake the feeling of being a disappointment. She had always been the responsible one, yet here she was, struggling to keep her head above water, while her sister seemed to glide through life effortlessly. That night, as she tucked Lily into bed, Emily whispered a silent promise to herself. She would find a way to make this work, with or without her parents' support. She would prove to them, and to herself, that she was capable of creating a beautiful life for her and her daughter. A few weeks later, just as Emily was beginning to feel a sense of stability, disaster struck. It started with a scratchy throat and a slight cough, which she initially brushed off as a common cold. But as the days passed, her symptoms worsened. By the time she woke up one Tuesday morning, she felt like she had been hit by a truck. Her head throbbed, and her body ached as if she had run a marathon. "Mommy, are you okay?" Lily's concerned voice broke through the fog of Emily's illness. The little girl stood at the bedroom door, her big brown eyes filled with worry. "I'm just a little under the weather, sweetheart," Emily managed to say, forcing a smile despite the pain. "Why don't you go watch some cartoons while I rest?" After Lily scampered off, Emily reached for her phone, knowing she needed to call in sick to work. But as she lay back against her pillows, the reality of her situation hit her hard. She couldn't risk Lily catching whatever she had. With a heavy heart, she picked up the phone and dialed her parents. "Hi, Mom, I'm really not feeling well. Could you watch Lily for a couple of days until I get better?" she asked, her voice hoarse. There was a long pause on the other end of the line before her mother responded. "Well, you know our rates, Emily. We'll need the money up front this time." Emily felt a surge of anger mixed with disbelief. "You're asking me for payment to watch your own granddaughter while I'm sick? This is ridiculous." "Look, we have our own lives to manage," her mother replied, her tone cold and businesslike. "If you want our help, you need to understand it's an imposition." With no other options, Emily reluctantly agreed and transferred the money, feeling humiliated. After dropping Lily off at her parents' house, she crawled back into bed, hoping that some rest would help her recover. But as the hours ticked by, her condition only worsened. By evening, it felt like an elephant was sitting on her chest. Each breath was a struggle, and the room began to spin. Panic set in as she realized this was more than just a cold. With trembling hands, she dialed 911, her heart racing as she fought to stay conscious. The next few hours were a blur of sirens, bright lights, and medical jargon. When a doctor finally stood at her bedside, his expression grim, Emily felt a wave of dread wash over her. "You have severe pneumonia," he said, showing her the chest x-ray. "You'll need to stay in the hospital for at least 2 weeks." 2 weeks? Emily's heart sank. What about Lily? I can't leave her for that long. After a brief call to her boss, who was surprisingly understanding, Emily turned her attention back to her parents. She dialed their number, her voice shaky as she explained the situation. "Mom, I'm in the hospital. The doctor says I need to stay for at least 2 weeks. Can you please help me with Lily?" "Absolutely not." Her mother's voice cut through the line like a knife. "We have a trip planned in 3 days. Your father and I, along with Rachel and the kids, are going away. We're not canceling our plans just because you can't handle your responsibilities as a mother." Emily felt the walls closing in around her. "Mom, please. I'll pay you double what you usually charge. I know it's an inconvenience, but I'm really sick." Silence hung in the air, and Emily could almost picture her mother calculating her options. Finally, her mother spoke, her tone businesslike. "We paid $5,000 for this trip. If you can pay us $1,000,000 to cover our expenses and the inconvenience, we'll consider canceling." Emily's heart raced as she processed her mother's words. It felt surreal, like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. "That's insane! I don't have that kind of money. I'm a single mother with bills to pay." "Then I suggest you figure something out," her mother snapped. "If you don't pick up Lily in 3 days, I'm putting her outside. I'm not missing this trip, Emily. You always create drama and expect everyone to drop everything for you." The line went dead, and Emily stared at her phone in disbelief. Her own mother had blocked her number while she lay in a hospital bed, struggling to breathe. The reality of her situation crashed down on her like a tidal wave. She was utterly alone. As the hours passed in the sterile hospital room, Emily felt the weight of despair settle heavily on her chest. Alone and frightened, she realized that her parents were not going to come to her aid. The thought of Lily being left without care gnawed at her, and she felt a surge of desperation. With trembling hands, she scrolled through her contacts, her heart racing as she hesitated over one name: Sarah. They had been close friends in college, but after Emily's marriage, their connection had faded. Sarah had always been the adventurous type, traveling the world and living life on her own terms. Emily had envied her freedom, but now she needed that same spirit of adventure to help her. Taking a deep breath, Emily dialed Sarah's number. It rang several times before Sarah picked up, her voice bright and cheerful. "Emily, it's been ages. How are you?" "Not great, actually," Emily replied, her voice cracking. "I'm in the hospital with pneumonia, and I need someone to take care of Lily. My parents won't help me, and I don't know who else to turn to." There was a pause on the other end, and Emily could almost hear Sarah processing the information. "Oh my gosh, Emily, I'm so sorry to hear that. Of course I'll help. I can be there as soon as I can." Relief washed over Emily like a warm wave. "Thank you, Sarah. I can't tell you how much this means to me." "I'll book a flight right now. Just text me your address and I'll be there," Sarah said, her voice filled with determination. As Emily hung up, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe she wouldn't have to face this alone after all. Sarah had always been a free spirit, but she was also fiercely loyal. Emily knew that if anyone could help her navigate this crisis, it was her. The next day, Emily's spirits lifted as she received a text from Sarah saying she had arrived in Portland. A few hours later, Sarah burst into the hospital room, her energy filling the space. "Emily, you look terrible," she exclaimed, rushing to her friend's side. But don't worry, I'm here now." Emily couldn't help but smile through her exhaustion. "Thank you for coming. I really didn't know who else to ask." "Of course, I've got this," Sarah said, her confidence radiating. "Let's get Lily and make sure she's taken care of while you recover. I'll handle everything." As Sarah took charge, Emily felt a sense of relief wash over her. She watched as Sarah made calls, arranged for Lily to stay with her, and even coordinated with Emily's clients to postpone meetings. It was a whirlwind of activity, and for the first time in days, Emily felt like she could breathe a little easier. When Sarah brought Lily to the hospital, the little girl rushed into Emily's arms, her face lighting up with joy. "Mommy, I missed you," Lily exclaimed, her small arms wrapping tightly around Emily's neck. "I missed you too, sweetheart," Emily said, her heart swelling with love. "You're going to stay with Aunt Sarah for a little while, okay? She's going to take care of you." Lily nodded, her eyes wide with excitement. "Can we make cookies, Aunt Sarah?" "Absolutely. We'll make the biggest cookies ever," Sarah replied, winking at Emily. As Emily watched them together, she felt a warmth in her chest. For the first time in a long while, she felt supported. Sarah's presence was a reminder that family didn't always have to be blood. Sometimes it was the people who showed up when you needed them most. With Sarah by her side, Emily focused on her recovery. She followed the doctor's orders, did her breathing exercises, and allowed herself to rest. Each day brought her closer to being able to return home to Lily, and she felt grateful for the unexpected lifeline that Sarah had provided. After a week of treatment, Emily was finally cleared for visitors. The sound of running feet echoed down the hospital corridor, and her heart raced with anticipation. When the door swung open, Lily burst into the room, her face beaming with joy. "Mommy!" she shouted, throwing herself onto the bed with a gentle bounce, careful not to disturb the IV line. "I brought you a picture I made." Emily smiled, her heart swelling with love as she took the colorful drawing from Lily's small hands. It was a crayon masterpiece depicting their family, complete with stick figures and a big sun shining above them. "This is beautiful, sweetheart. I love it," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Just then, Sarah entered the room, carrying a thermal bag filled with homemade food. "Hospital food isn't fit for recovery," she declared, setting the bag down on the table. "I brought you some real food." As Sarah unpacked containers of soup, fresh bread, and even a slice of Emily's favorite lemon cake, Emily felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. "Thank you, Sarah. You've been amazing through all of this." "To doing what friends do," Sarah replied with a smile. "Now, let's eat and catch up." As they shared a meal, Emily felt a sense of normalcy returning. She listened to Lily chatter excitedly about her time with Sarah, the cookies they had baked, and the games they had played. It warmed Emily's heart to see her daughter so happy, especially during such a challenging time. Days passed, and Emily's health improved. Each visit from Sarah and Lily brought a new sense of hope and joy. Sarah would bring stories from the outside world, funny anecdotes about their childhood, and even some gossip about mutual friends. Emily found herself laughing more than she had in months. One afternoon, while Lily was busy coloring in her new coloring book, Sarah grew quiet, her expression thoughtful. "You know, Emily, I owe you an apology," she said, her voice low. "I didn't realize how much you were struggling. I should have reached out more." Emily looked at her friend, surprised. "You don't have to apologize. I know I've been distant since the divorce. I just thought I could handle everything on my own." "You're stronger than you think, but you don't have to do it alone," Sarah replied, her eyes sincere. "I'm here for you, no matter what." As Emily absorbed Sarah's words, she felt a shift within herself. She had spent so long trying to prove her independence, but now she understood the importance of accepting help. It was okay to lean on others, especially those who cared about her. Finally, after 2 weeks in the hospital, Emily was discharged. As she stepped outside, the fresh air filled her lungs and she felt a renewed sense of freedom. Sarah and Lily were waiting for her, and the sight of them brought a smile to her face. "Welcome home, Mommy," Lily cheered, jumping up and down. "Thank you, both of you, for everything," Emily said, her heart full. "I couldn't have done this without you." As they drove back to her parents' house, Emily felt a sense of determination. She was ready to reclaim her life, to build a future for herself and Lily that was filled with love and support. No longer would she rely on her parents' approval or their conditional love. Once home, Emily and Lily settled into a new routine. With Sarah's help, Emily began to rebuild her interior design business, taking on new clients and projects. She found joy in her work again, and with each successful project, her confidence grew. Lily thrived as well, her laughter filling the house as she played with her toys and created art projects. Emily made it a point to spend quality time with her daughter, whether it was baking cookies, going to the park, or simply cuddling on the couch with a good book. As the weeks turned into months, Emily felt a sense of peace settle over her. She had learned to prioritize her well-being and that of her daughter. With Sarah's continued support, she felt empowered to face whatever challenges lay ahead. One sunny afternoon, as Emily and Lily were enjoying a picnic in the park, Emily's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, glancing at the screen. It was an unfamiliar number, but something in her gut told her it might be important. "Hold on a second, sweetheart," she said to Lily, who was busy chasing after a butterfly. Emily answered the call, her heart racing slightly. "Hello? Emily, it's Mom." Her mother's voice came through, sounding strained and desperate. Emily's heart sank. It had been months since they last spoke, and she had no idea what to expect. "What do you want?" she replied, trying to keep her tone neutral despite the flood of emotions. "We need your help," her mother said, her voice cracking. "It's about Rachel." Emily felt a knot form in her stomach. "What about her?" she asked cautiously. Her mother said, her voice trembling. "She ran off with some man she met online, just packed a bag and left without saying goodbye to the kids. They've been with us for 3 weeks now, and your father and I are struggling to manage." Emily's mind raced. Rachel had always been the favorite, the one who could do no wrong in their parents' eyes. Now they were calling her for help. "What exactly do you want from me?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Well," her mother hesitated. "We thought you could send us some money every month to help with their expenses. It's the least you could do for family." A bitter laugh escaped Emily's lips. "The least I could do for family?" she repeated incredulously. "Is this a joke? You demanded $10,000 to watch your own granddaughter while I was in the hospital. You chose a vacation over helping me." "Emily, that was different," her mother protested. "We had plans. We didn't know you were really in trouble." "Really? You didn't know?" Emily shot back, her anger boiling over. "You've always put Rachel first, and now you want me to bail you out? I'm sorry, but I can't help you." "Please, Tessa." Her mother's voice softened, desperation creeping in. "We're your parents. We need your help." Emily took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past pressing down on her. "You were my parents when I needed you, and you turned your back on me. You raised Rachel to be who she is, and now you have to deal with the consequences. I'm not responsible for her choices." The line went silent for a moment, and Emily could hear her mother's shaky breath. "If you won't help willingly, we'll just bring the kids to your apartment and leave them there. Then you'll have no choice but to take responsibility." A smile crept onto Emily's face, a sense of empowerment washing over her. "Go ahead, Mom. But good luck finding me. I moved to another state 2 years ago." "What?" Her mother sputtered, disbelief evident in her voice. "Where are you?" "That's not your concern," Emily replied calmly. "You made your choices, and now you have to live with them. You and Dad raised Rachel to believe she could do whatever she wanted without consequences. You enabled her behavior for years while criticizing every move I made. Now you're reaping what you've sown." "Please, Emily," her mother's voice cracked, finally dropping the threatening tone. "We're your parents. We need your help." "Funny," Emily said, her voice steady. "I was your daughter when I needed your help, and that didn't seem to matter much. Goodbye, Mom." With that, she hung up the phone, feeling lighter than she had in years. The weight of her parents' expectations and their toxic behavior had been lifted, and she was finally free. As she turned to Lily, who had been watching her with wide eyes, Emily knelt down and pulled her daughter into a tight embrace. "Everything is going to be okay, sweetheart," she whispered, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "We're going to build our own family, one that loves and supports each other." Months passed, and life continued to unfold in unexpected ways. Emily found herself thriving in her new routine, filled with creativity and joy. With Sarah's support, she had rebuilt her interior design business, taking on exciting projects that reignited her passion. Each successful design brought her closer to her dreams, and she felt a sense of accomplishment that had been missing for far too long. Lily was flourishing as well. She had made new friends at school and was excelling in her classes. Emily made it a point to be present in her daughter's life, attending every school event and cheering her on at soccer games. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, and Emily cherished the moments they spent together, whether it was baking cookies, reading bedtime stories, or simply cuddling on the couch. One afternoon, as they sat in their cozy living room, Emily received a notification on her phone. It was a message from Sarah, who had been keeping her updated on their parents' struggles. "Your mom called me today," Sarah wrote. "They're having a tough time with Rachel's kids. They hired an expensive babysitter because they can't handle it on their own." Emily felt a mix of emotions. Part of her felt sympathy for her parents, but another part of her felt a sense of vindication. They had made their choices, and now they were facing the consequences. She remembered the countless times they had criticized her while enabling Rachel's reckless behavior. Later that week, Emily closed on a beautiful 4-bedroom house with a big backyard, perfect for Lily's upcoming 10th birthday party. As they moved in, Emily felt a sense of pride wash over her. This was their home, a place filled with love, laughter, and the promise of a bright future. On the day of the birthday party, the backyard was filled with colorful decorations, balloons, and the sounds of children playing. Emily watched as Lily ran around with her friends, her laughter ringing through the air. It was a moment of pure joy, and Emily couldn't help but smile. As the party wound down, Emily took a moment to reflect on how far she had come. She had built a life for herself and her daughter, one that was free from the toxicity of her past. She had learned that family wasn't just about blood, it was about the people who showed up when you needed them most. That evening, as they sat together on the porch watching the sunset, Emily turned to Lily. "You know, sweetheart, family is about love and support. It's about being there for each other no matter what." Lily nodded, her eyes sparkling. "Like you and Aunt Sarah?" "Exactly," Emily replied, her heart swelling with pride. "And we'll always be there for each other, no matter what happens." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Emily felt a sense of peace settle over her. She had reclaimed her life, and she was determined to create a future filled with love, respect, and genuine family connections. The past no longer held power over her, and she was ready to embrace whatever came next. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of her daughter's laughter and the beauty of their new home, Emily knew that she had finally found her place in the world, a place where she and Lily could thrive together, free from the shadows of the past.